This forecast is brought to you by me. For information on readings I offer, check out my website at manic.mercurian.net, or you can reach out to me directly at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. And as usual, all of that information is in the description box below. Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, January 23rd through Sunday, January 29th, 2023. This week, well, actually, before I talk about this week, I wanted to talk about a few things that happened last week because that is really going to define a lot of what is going on this week. So, just in the several days before the beginning of this week here, we had Mercury turning direct. So Mercury is now fully direct. It is moving forward. We're going to get Mercury's first aspect since it's retrograde this week. So I'll tell you what all that means. But not only that, but we also had Sun entering Aquarius last week and a new moon in Aquarius last week as well. So basically what all that boils down to is a lot of new energy. And I wanted to congratulate you for getting through the last several weeks because I think it was a very kind of funky energy. I think this time of year is typically a more challenging part of the year anyway, but to add on top of that, not just one interplanet retrograde, but two, Mercury and Mars, both being retrograde at the same time and then both stationing direct. I think the retrogrades were kind of a weird time where we had to go back, slow down. Those periods are definitely very valuable, but that doesn't make them fun or easy. You know what I mean? So yeah, congratulations, you got through it, and now things have changed. Those few things I just listed off that happened last week basically mean that this week we are going full speed ahead where the whole focus is about the present and the future. Aquarius typically represents the future anyway. Happy birthday, Aquariuses, by the way. This is the first week where we have the sun fully in Aquarius. But yeah, that's what Aquarius is all about. It's about the future. Let's forget the past. Let's go forward. Where is this going? So that is very much the energy, especially because we have almost all the planets direct as we start out the week. Actually, excuse me, we have every single planet direct. Uranus just turned direct last week as well, so I could have listed that off too. So yeah, that's another thing. We have every single planet direct right now. That's pretty wild. It is something that we've experienced around the beginning of the year, the last few years. So yeah, basically that just means we are going forward. This is the best time to act, in a very linear and direct way. Things are more simple when all the planets are direct. We don't have to do so much work, slowing down and processing things and thinking about the past. All of that is great, but there's a time and place for it, and that time is not now, if that makes sense. Just to give you a rundown of what's happening this week, though, besides all this like direct energy that I was just talking about, we have Venus entering Pisces, so that's pretty cool as well. I think that's really good news. This time of year is difficult not only because Capricorn and Aquarius are ruled by Saturn, so they're more kind of challenging. Winter in general is more of a challenging time astrologically. But also, we have Pluto in Capricorn and Saturn in Aquarius. So right now, the sun is kind of sandwiched between these two malefic energies, these sort of challenging placements. So that's why I think it's so great that Venus, which, bestows upon us so much abundance and beauty and a lot of really easy, fun types of themes. Now Venus is very much in her element. Venus will be entering Pisces, so she will be exalted. I almost said exiled, but no, she's exalted. So this is, in many ways, it's the strongest place to have Venus. This is a great time to embrace that Venusian energy, that love, abundance, pleasure, etc. So that's really great. That adds a really nice kind of dimension to what will be going on this week. We also have a first quarter moon happening in Taurus. That's going to be particularly interesting. I always talk about how quarter moons are underrated, or in the sense that they are, well, maybe not, I don't know if underrated is the right word, but they're not paid attention to nearly close enough, I think, by the astrological community. Quarter moons are very eventful. They really, spur things into action. This one's going to be interesting because as that first quarter moon happens in Taurus, the moon will be conjunct the north node and the sun will be squaring the nodes. This means a whole bunch of things. I'll talk more about that when we get to that day. But part of that means that we are halfway between eclipse seasons. I feel like it was not even that long ago that we just had that eclipse season last fall, but then, we're halfway between that one and the next one that will happen in about 3 months. So yeah, I always like to point out that kind of halfway point because it represents kind of a tipping point. There's not necessarily a lot that typically happens in a really dramatic way, but it's kind of just like a checkpoint or a midpoint. But to add a first quarter moon on top of that, that can give you a little bit of almost eclipse-like energy. This is definitely not an eclipse at all, but it's a little bit similar because we have the sun aspecting the moon in a somewhat major way, and the moon is it will be conjunct the north node for this. So the moon is channeling in that energy. The sun is not. The sun is as far away from the nodes as possible, but the moon is on the nodal axis. So that will bring in some kind of like trippy karmic energy, things kind of lining up in a weird way. It'll be a dramatic day when we get that first quarter moon. Okay, so I kind of just rattled off a bunch of things that are happening this week. Hopefully all that makes sense. The main thing going on that is the overlying theme is moving forward, going into uncharted territory. Forget the past. We may have been dwelling a lot or, contemplating or thinking about the past the last several weeks. Now you can completely forget that. Let's move forward, basically. So I will do that too. Last thing I want to mention, moon is waxing this week. It'll be waxing from Aquarius technically to Gemini. It depends on your time zone. It'll make it from Aquarius to either Taurus or Gemini, depending on where you are by the end of the week. But okay, so let's get into the day-by-day forecast here. Okay, so we start out Monday, January 23rd, and we start out with the moon still in Aquarius, so we're still going off of that new moon, just barely. That new moon's energy is kind of still, we still have that kind of residual energy from the new moon, so it's still an excellent time for setting intentions, setting goals. Aquarius is a great time for doing that anyway because it's such a forward-thinking energy, but especially having a new moon, and we're still kind of in the after energy, the residual energy of that new moon, so it's still a great time for setting those intentions. Moon will enter Pisces by, you can see here a little bit afternoon Eastern Standard Time. Right before the moon does enter Pisces, though, moon conjoins Venus. Venus is on her way to Pisces. She's not quite there yet, but right before the moon enters Pisces, moon will cross over Venus. So that's really excellent. I think this will change the energy pretty dramatically on Monday because before that, I keep talking about the past, so I'm sorry. As I'm filming this, it is not this time yet, so maybe I'm still in some of that almost kind of like retrograde like energy, but just to explain what's going on here, so I think this is a big shift on Monday because before Monday the sun it was so close to Pluto and the moon had just crossed over Saturn on the weekend prior. So these energies change pretty dramatically as the sun separates from Pluto, and moon not only separates from Saturn but it also crosses over Venus. So just to give you perspective, Saturn and Pluto are both such kind of challenging energies. They're very difficult, very dark in nature. So separating away from those, getting the luminaries away from those, putting the sun in Aquarius and having the moon cross over Venus and then enter Pisces, this all just really softens things up pretty dramatically. This means that we can kind of relax. We, of course, still need to be responsible and wise and all of that good stuff, but we are not perhaps being tested so fervently. I don't know if that's even the right word. Sometimes the words just come to me and I don't know if they're the right word. Fervently or, tested so hard or so. We don't have to be so on point all the time. Now that we have these planets kind of shifting like this, if that makes sense, we can relax a little bit. I always talk about how I love moon in Pisces. I think this energy works really great. I think moon in Pisces rivals a domicile energy in the sense that moon in Pisces is very strong, Pisces represents many of the same things that the moon represents. Both have to do with intuition, spirituality, emotion. They're both very nurturing energies, very warm, very caring. You know what I mean? So, moon in Pisces is great. We can all just kind of relax. There's like a softness there. There's a softness that allows us not only to feel what we really feel, but also to kind of ponder and wonder. There's this like kind of speculative, like dreamy energy about it. So this is great. And then combining that with in Aquarius, Sun in Aquarius, Moon in Pisces, these are kind of dreamy energies, very much forward thinking and wondering, contemplating in very much a forward thinking way. We're very much going forward now. But you'll really start to feel this forward energy once the moon gains a little bit of light. It's still barely visible at this point. It's still, waxing, as it will be all week. It'll start out as just a sliver, and as the days go by, you'll get more and more kind of meat to that moon, if that makes sense. For Tuesday, January 24th, Sun sextiles Jupiter. So Sun will be at 4 degrees Aquarius. It makes a sextile to Jupiter at 4 degrees Aries. This is really great too. I like to be honest with you guys. This looks like an objectively positive and easy kind of aspect. Sextiles are always very harmonious. That's kind of a key word for sextile aspects. And this one is basically channeling in the Jupiter energy. Jupiter in Aries, which is it's so much about expansion. Almost mindless expansion. Maybe that is one of the caveats of this abundance. But Jupiter, which represents abundance, being in Aries, which is all about newness and starting something new and pioneering. It's all about independence, and I think Jupiter in Aries is another energy that almost rivals a domicile-like energy, because Jupiter has so much to do with so many things that Aries kind of does in a way. So channeling in that energy through this aspect with the sun means that we can really kind of, we can feel that abundance. We can feel that courage, that bravery, that fire, that passion. What else? Also, we can look to what these two energies have in common. So Jupiter and Aries making this connection with Sun and Aquarius. Both of these energies are very individualistic, independent, a little bit rebellious. So today we might not be as afraid to be a little bit provocative or a little bit, stepping slightly outside of some boundaries. I think sometimes rules and boundaries are meant to be tested at times. I think we all enjoy, some moments where we veer out of course, we veer out of what is, predictable, or we like to get out of our kind of rut, if that makes sense. This energy is really great too, considering that we've been in such slow energies for the last several weeks. So this could be a good time to, be a little bit spontaneous, a little bit irreverent, or what have you. Okay, let's go forward to Wednesday, January 25th. So Sun continues on through these first few degrees of Aquarius. And already by Wednesday, Moon will actually leave Pisces and enter Aries. This is exciting for multiple reasons. I do love Moon and Pisces, as I always say, but Moon entering Aries is, of course, exciting. Just like any planet entering Aries is exciting, because that is the first sign. That's the initiation. That's the start of a new cycle, in a sense. So this is a time where we are feeling maybe a little bit more rowdy, more excitable, more energetic, more passionate. So that's one reason to be excited about this. But also the angle that the moon will be making to the sun is exciting as well, because now not only did we just have Jupiter in a sextile with the sun, but also now moon will sextile the sun today on Wednesday. So that basically means moon it's a waxing crescent at this point. If you do get a chance to see it, it will be very beautiful. There tends to be a sort of like metaphor to these things, if that makes sense, or symbology. So the moon at this point is literally, it literally looks beautiful, I would say. It's a crescent moon, so it represents the start of something new. And this energy in astrology, it is beautiful. It's a harmonious energy. Moon sextiling the sun, very harmonious, very complementary. Um, just because Moon and Aries with Sun and Aquarius, both of these energies vibe together very well. So we can all kind of feel this a little bit of a harmonious day on Wednesday, basically. Yes, these energies are centered around being a little bit rebellious or provocative, a little bit weird. I think we can have fun with that, though. This is really fun energy. It's not rebellious in the sense of, it's not destructive, I guess is what I'm saying. It's not chaotic. This is just a kind of fun, let's be a little bit wild or playful, or, step outside of the norm type of thing. All right, let's go forward to Thursday now. So Thursday is pretty exciting because Venus does enter Pisces today. It will do so in the latter half of the day, Eastern Standard Time. So like I said in the intro, this is really great. Venus is exalted in Pisces. Whenever you have planets exalted that are transiting, it's generally or objectively an easy time for everyone. It's like a crowd pleaser energy. Is this energy easy and fun for every single person? No, of course not. No transit generally is, you know what I mean? But Venus's energy is strongest when it's in Pisces. It's exalted, and because Venus is a benefic, meaning that it's an easy planet to work with. Its energies make life easier. They make life more fun. You know what I mean? So although this may not be necessarily easy for every single individual in the world, Venus in Pisces is definitely a good omen for everyone, generally speaking. This means more abundance, more pleasure. Venus in Pisces also means that our pleasures are a little bit less tangible. Pisces has to do with spirituality and emotion and intuition and all that. It's very kind of non-physical in nature. So when Venus is there, Venus shows what our pleasures are, what our desires are. So this means that we may not be able to totally understand our pleasure, our love, our desire, etc. But in a way, that is kind of the nature of desire in the first place. That's why Venus is exalted there, because you can't quantify pleasure. You can't quantify love. You know what I mean? It's not meant to be fully understood, and that's the beauty of it. So I don't know. I feel like I put that pretty well. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, that is what we can all hopefully love and appreciate while Venus is transiting Pisces the next month or so. Other than that, there is a kind of side note happening on Thursday that's a little bit of a different type of energy. Moon is continuing through Aries, so we talked about that on Wednesday, how that is great in the sense that it makes this really strong harmonious aspect with the sun. So that puts a general, really pleasant overall vibe to the day. However, on Thursday, Moon does cross over Chiron, and I've described Chiron's been in Aries since 2018, and I think we've all noticed how since 2018 everyone has been so easily offended. There's all this triggered language, and everyone's been very upset. There's been a lot of protests. So Moon crossing over Chiron, it basically brings the attention to that kind of energy. This energy, on the one hand, I don't want to demonize it for sure. On the one hand, it is great for seeking justice, especially for those who have felt like their story has not been heard. People who have felt like they have past trauma or a past, story that has not been understood or has been trampled on or what have you. So some are demanding understanding. But my only dilemma with that is that I think sometimes with this type of energy, this is Aries we're talking about. So if you demand empathy so dramatically or so harshly, you may not necessarily get that. You know what I mean? Or it may cause further hurt, further confusion. So anyway, there's a whole kind of, I'm picturing like a bag. There's a lot of baggage there. There's a big Pandora's box of sorts, I think, whenever we get aspects with Chiron. This is not a super big deal though. Moon is a very quick body astrologically. So moon will cross over Chiron. But I did want to mention this just because it does happen around midday Eastern Standard Time. So there could be like tempers flaring up, or people just acting a little bit off the cuff. That could be good for maybe stirring things up, or conjuring out that honesty. Maybe someone has really been needing to get something off their chest. That could be good in that area, but it could also just kind of stir up unnecessary chaos as well. All right, so for Friday, January 27th, now Mercury squares Chiron too. So this really just continues what I was saying for Thursday, and it's a different aspect, of course. This is slightly different, but again, we have instead of the moon, now it's Mercury that is aspecting Chiron. So again, this is bringing to light this somewhat chaotic, very emotional energy that's demanding. It's very demanding in general, demanding empathy though. I did want to mention how this is kind of almost like a, what do you call it, like a landmark, because this is the first aspect we have for Mercury since Mercury was retrograde. It's kind of a big deal. This is a big deal for, at least for me as an astrologer, because when I sit down and I talk about these aspects, typically, or well, I should say more often than not, Mercury is initiating the aspects. Mercury is the communicator. You can see this with Mercury in the Greek plays and such. The Greek god, he is the one that connects with everyone and initiates all the conversations. You know what I mean? So that literally, in an astrological sense, because Mercury travels so fast, most of the time Mercury makes by far more aspects with the other planets than any other planet does. But when we have Mercury retrograde, especially when Mercury is close to stationing retrograde or stationing direct, then it doesn't make a whole lot of aspects. So we just don't have as much going on, kind of. I mean, there's always stuff going on, but things almost come to a standstill, if that makes sense. So maybe this is just me as an astrologer being excited about this, but this is the first aspect we have for Mercury. So that basically means things are getting into motion here. Mercury is truly direct. It's traveling, maybe kind of close to full speed at this point. Initiating those conversations, those connections with the other planets. That being said, though, still, let's go back to what this actually means, though. So Mercury squaring Chiron. This means that the communication, the information, the kind of, what do you call it, like the general rhythm of the day is at odds with that energy that I just talked about, Chiron and Aries, which has to do with demanding justice, demanding your truth to be heard, demanding demanding what else? Demanding empathy, demanding understanding. All those things, maybe those things are valid, but they're just not lining up with the rhythm of things today. They're not lining up with the communication. The communication could be off today. So again, this could be the energy of very dysfunctional conversations. Maybe, maybe we all have good intentions, but we come across a little too strong. We're just not wording things the right way today. It's this is dysfunctional. Again, it's not, for 99% of people, this is not going to be life changing. It's not going to, flip everything upside down. But I do think it would create a dysfunctional atmosphere for the day, for sure. You may be tempted to have a deep conversation with someone, and I definitely don't want to steer you away from doing that. But I would say maybe just kind of think through what you're saying. If you're, this would be good advice for any time, but especially today. If you're feeling, a certain way, if you're feeling very strongly, just think it through, maybe even sleep on it, and then, come to it the next day. I definitely don't think that constructive, deep conversations are impossible today, but I do think that they may be more difficult than they seem today, if that makes sense. Okay, let's go forward to Saturday. So for Saturday, January 28th, now we get this really kind of wacky first quarter moon. So by now, the moon has entered Taurus. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. Friday, moon entered Taurus late in the day. So Saturday, we have moon in Taurus all day. And you can see in the chart here, just before noon Eastern Standard Time, moon does cross over the north node. And right as it does, to the degree, uh, that's where we get that peak first quarter moon energy. So in other words, sun, well, technically moon squaring the sun at 8 degrees, moon at 8 degrees Taurus, squaring the sun at 8 degrees Aquarius. And at the same time, moon is conjunct the north node at 8 degrees Taurus, and sun is squaring both the nodes. Sun at 8 degrees Aquarius, squaring north node at 8 degrees Taurus, and south node at 8 degrees Scorpio. Okay, so what does all that mean? So we're combining multiple things here. So we're combining a first quarter moon, which, spurs us into action. Its energy can be felt as a little bit of anxiety or restlessness, but it's also motivating. It's motivating us to make change. This is the best time to initiate something, to make change. Any first quarter moon. So we're combining all that with this nodal focus. So whenever we have the sun or the moon conjunct one of the nodes, this brings in an energy that is very trippy. That's at least how I experience it. It's almost theatrical or movie like. Oftentimes things will just line up in what would seem like a very unlikely kind of way. Like you're just in the right place at the right time, or maybe the wrong place at the wrong time. You might meet someone who happens to have the piece of information that you've been looking for, or these can also be very life-changing energies as well. So this is not as intense as an eclipse, but it is a little bit like that. If you've paid attention, during eclipse seasons or anything like that, this will be a little bit like that. It's not as dramatic for sure. It's not a new moon or a full moon conjunct the nodes, but it is a quarter moon. And I always say quarter moons they're very tangible. If I was trying to get a skeptic to be open to astrology, quarter moons could easily be one of the first things I would point out, almost equal to a full moon, because they are just so incredibly tangible. There's so much action and restlessness. Children and pets especially will be all riled up, awake really late. Even adults can be awake later at night. This is a Saturday night too, so that definitely, we're kind of up maybe a little bit later on a Saturday anyway, but I digress. But yeah, this does look like more than a little bit of a chaotic energy for sure. I find it interesting that typically moon in Taurus would be a very harmonious energy. Moon is exalted. We have both the most feminine planets exalted, moon and Venus, so that's really great. Typically that would mean we can just have those soft, subtle energies. The energies of intuition and emotion are super abundant right now, so that would be really comfortable, kind of cozy, I would say. But what's interesting is this is not your typical transit of moon going through Taurus. Not only is Uranus there, like it has been since also 2018, like Chiron, but the North Node is there too. So North Node and Uranus make things unpredictable. They can bring about sudden changes. What else? Sudden changes. This kind of larger than life energy. Things may seem stable, but then they change out of nowhere. You may have a sudden complete shift in your perception from both North Node and Uranus. So there's all that. Moon is immersed in these very unpredictable, sudden change type of energies. But also, again, with this first quarter moon is squaring Sun and Aquarius. Sun and Aquarius has that little bit of unpredictability as well. Uranus rules Aquarius, kind of. Aquarius has to do with sudden changes too. So all this put together basically means expect the unexpected for Saturday. This looks like a wild weekend, and adding on top of all that too, this is the first weekend we've had where, the sun is in Aquarius, all the planets are direct. So, with all this new stuff going on, expect the unexpected. If you I always try to think of what to advise, on what to do today. I do definitely think it may be hard to stay in and relax, because you're gonna feel this abundant energy. You're gonna want to get out, you're gonna want to do something, maybe do something physical in nature. But on the other hand, I would advise you maybe just be a little bit cautious if you are in public, or if you're going out doing something, expect the unexpected. It could be a little bit wild. Hopefully you're open to that, I think, because no matter what you do, this energy will be a little bit intense, I would say, for sure. Okay, and then lastly, for Sunday, January 29th, we have Moon continuing on through Taurus. By now, Moon has crossed over Uranus, so we are still very much in the aftermath of these really wacky energies that we were kind of pummeled by on Saturday, but things are lightening up a little bit, just a little bit. We still could be in the midst of it to some degree, but things definitely peaked on Saturday, so now we're kind of just like riding the waves of that initial. You know what I'm picturing? I'm picturing like a meteor hitting the ocean. So that would be Saturday. Meteor like hits the ocean. And then from that, there's like these waves kind of pouring off. And those waves are Sunday. So I guess that's still kind of intense, but it's not as intense as Saturday. Does that make sense? I don't know. I always feel so weird when I'm doing these. But hopefully that makes sense. What else? Also for Sunday, Mercury makes a trine to Uranus, so Mercury at 14 degrees Capricorn, trining Uranus at 14 degrees Taurus. This is very interesting indeed, especially considering the whole premise, the whole context of everything that's been going on, everything that I've told you up to this point. This is very, very much an interesting week. And just to digress for one moment about that, I think what's the most interesting to me as an astrologer is that it's not that we have any like super big aspect going on, really. There's nothing monumental going on necessarily. There's no kind of like super big cluster or aspect. It's more just a bunch of kind of little things that are all adding up to this being very much a pivotal week, very much moving forward. So considering that whole environment, now we have Mercury trining Uranus. Mercury, the energy of intellect, communication, the mind, making this connection with Uranus, which is all about dramatic shifts in perception. It's the energy of earthquakes. This is the perfect aspect that you could possibly want for enlightenment, for gaining sudden shifts in awareness, sudden informational downloads, things of that nature. So especially if you have strong Mercury or Uranus energy, or if you have planets around 14 degrees of Capricorn or Taurus or both, or really any of the earth signs. We can extend this to Virgo as well. If any of that is true for you, then this this would not only be a good time for sudden shifts in awareness, but I would say to look out for this. This will catch you off guard, because with this type of energy, it's not necessarily that you seek this type of thing out. This is a sudden shift in awareness that doesn't come from you seeking it. It doesn't come from you saying, hey, I want to know more about blank, or I want to shift this. There's no intention in this. This is just something that comes to you out of nowhere. At least that's typically how it's perceived. What's interesting too is that whatever you're suddenly gaining awareness on, it is not usually something that is actually new. It's just your awareness of it that is new. It's your perception that is new. So those are kind of the only hints I can give you to what you can expect today. But other than that, again, expect the unexpected. I think I'm going to title this video that. I was trying to think of what to title this forecast, and I think that is gonna be it, because that's kind of a key phrase that keeps coming up with multiple things that are happening this week. But yeah, Mercury trining Uranus, expect the unexpected. I did list off those signs and placements that those sudden shifts in awareness would be most likely for, but this can apply to anyone. It doesn't matter if you have a lot of Earth planets or strong Mercury or Uranus energy. We can all have sudden informational downloads and shifts in our perception when we have Mercury trining Uranus like this, especially with all everything else going on. If you want more information on that, look to where Mercury and Uranus fall in your chart, especially Mercury, since Mercury is initiating this aspect. Mercury is 14 degrees. It's at 14 degrees Capricorn. It's about halfway through. So where does Capricorn fall in your chart? Specifically, about halfway through Capricorn. What planets do you have there? What houses, or what do you have at that area? That will help to point to where you can possibly gain these very large shifts in perception and awareness on Sunday. Okay, that sounded like I wrapped up the whole forecast, but I'm not done yet. That would have been really smooth. Also on Sunday, one more thing, basically. We have Sun trining Mars. Sun at 9 degrees Aquarius, making a trine to Mars, which is at 9 degrees Gemini. I think this is one of the first aspects, maybe the first aspect that Mars has made since it has turned direct as well. Technically, Mars didn't make this aspect, the Sun did, but let's give Mars the credit anyway, because Mars it's slowly chugging along. It's at the 10th degree of Gemini, technically. So it finally reached 9 degrees Gemini. Mars was hovering at 8 degrees Gemini for a long time when it was stationing direct. So we're finally getting that Mars energy, that energy of ambition, confrontation, aggression, sexuality as well. All of that is coming back online, and as it does, we get this boost of energy from the Sun, making a trine from 9 degrees Aquarius. This basically means that both the energies of Sun and Mars are very fiery. They're very energetic, very warm. They're very lively, very action oriented. So having these aligned like this means go time. This is another phrase that keeps coming up too. Kind of funny, but specifically these are in the air signs. So this means that all those things I listed off, the energy, the ambition, the drive, it's very much intellectual in nature right now, which is kind of weird, because typically this would be a more fiery energy. Both the Sun and Mars are more comfortable in fire signs, but they're in air signs right now. So that means that you air signs out there, you Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra people, or people who have strong placements in those signs, you may feel very energetic right now. You may feel very confident, very all these words are going through my mind. You may feel very gregarious or very outspoken, very much acting in the moment, spontaneous, etc. So enjoy that boost of confidence. For everyone else, we may experience this energy too. There's this extra oomph, this extra warmth, energy, electricity when it comes to that air energy, the intellect, ideas. We may be more focused on other people right now, etc. Okay, and then we end this week right around midnight, the night of Sunday night. Moon does enter Gemini. So I just wanted to, I have to be technical, so I wanted to say that just in case it matters to anyone. Depending on your time zone, Moon will enter Gemini either very late Sunday or very early Monday. So that will kind of stir things up for sure. I think it's going to be interesting seeing the Moon cross over Mars in a moment. So that's what I have for you for this week, though. Like I was saying, Moon crossing over Mars is going to be kind of interesting just because Mars so recently turned direct, and Moon will at the same time step into a trine with the Sun. So that's going to start this next week pretty, in a very harmonious, very strong way. Other than that, for the next week, we have all planets direct. So definitely, come back next week if you would like. If you find these things helpful, that is my aim. That's my only mission here, is to assist you, I guess. I look at all these things and I find it helpful. I can't imagine not knowing about, these things and just completely winging it like almost everyone does. But anyway, congratulations again for coming through a lot of weird times. We have a lot of weird times to go. I'm excited for what's going to happen the rest of this year. But I thank you for watching and or listening, and I look forward to talking to you next week. Take care.